Okay, the recording has now started, so thank you again for joining us, everyone. And now I will turn it back over to Anna to bring us into the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. And again, you have joined the Tribal Youth Courts and Peer-Led Processes session. We are so grateful that you're joining us today, and we have reached the end of our conference. So if you've been with us the first 2 days, welcome back. Next slide. We always like to open our sessions in a good way, and so I thought a way that we could open this session is just to share with each other. I'd like everyone to think of someone who has been a mentor or a role model to them. And when you envision that person, when you think about that individual, who they are, who they were in your life, just share a word or a phrase for what you feel or what you think about that individual. So I know for myself, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of role models that we were sharing in our team, teachers or others who have been in our life. And so I was sharing that I had an elementary teacher in my life who was supportive just from a very young grade all the way until I was close to middle school, going to junior high. I just want to share that there's those role models and individuals in our lives that have provided support, helped us along the way, have given us things in our life that have helped us move forward in a good way. And so just to invite you all to share and give a word or a phrase or something that you feel when you think about that role model or mentor in your life. I see some responses coming in. Auntie, support, love, and guidance. Grandma, she lived her Christian life daily. She gave us all hope. This individual feels safe when they think about this person. Grateful. Grandmother, yeah, from Tasha. Helping me grow up spiritually. Thank you, Jermaine and Lionel. So I know we're going to get some very wonderful responses in here. I hope that, I know we're not meeting in person. We've moved into this virtual world. And so if we were all in person, we could stand up and share with each other. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that chat box. And I'm sure many of us who have been with OJJDP and tribal grants, we know each other, and we aren't able to connect physically this time, but we're here virtually. And so I just want to say a welcome to all of those who I know and have met before, and welcome you into this space. And then for those of you who I don't know, just welcome to our session, and we're going to go ahead and move forward. So next slide. So we are very fortunate today to have some youth voices to talk about the topic that we have today. A lot of times we present and we talk about different initiatives or different programs or processes. And this year we really wanted to bring in the youth voice in everything that we're doing. And so I am very grateful to have two young individuals on this session today with me to give their perspectives on youth courts and peer-led processes. And so I would invite Angela to go ahead and introduce herself and share a little bit about where she's at in life, and then we'll go to Elise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Noah. I'm Waimaun Apache and Oklahoma Choctaw. I grew up on the Fort Apache Indian Reservation in Arizona. And I got familiarized with Unity through my tribe's youth council. And then the past few years recently have been working with their Earth Ambassador. It's an environmental program. So that was kind of my first segue into Unity Peer Guide and becoming part of a co-Northwest representative. So there are 12 of us that are part of the Peer Guide cohort with Unity. I mean, we have a lot of conversations around, what is justice? How do youth become advocacy or role models, how can we work with their communities? So I was able to see that process when I was a student at Chemawa Indian School. So I was sent off to boarding school, and I've just stayed out here because if you know Chemawa, it's in Salem, Oregon. So I'm still out here a long ways from home. But I'm excited to join you all and to be a part of this conference. So thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elise Hocking. I am a student at Bowdoin College in Maine. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and this semester I'm interning with the Tribal Law and Policy Institute, and I'm going to be speaking about my experience working with Maine Youth Court and sharing wisdom with all of you.
Thank you to Angela and Elise, and I already introduced myself, but again, my name is Anna Clough. I'm Muskogee Creek and UT. I grew up here in Oklahoma and am very fortunate to work for the Tribal Law and Policy Institute remotely and serve as part of the Tribal Youth Resource Center team, and have been involved in training and technical assistance now for the last 4 years or so, and I am an attorney in practice and have enjoyed working with tribal youth and families across the state. And I have 5 children, and I live right in central Oklahoma now. So I'm the same. I went to OU, and then I just stayed around Norman. So it's been a long time now. I've been here a couple of decades and just enjoying life and being with my family here in the state of Oklahoma. So we can go to the next slide. So today our session objectives are just to talk about youth-led processes and strategies to support youth diversion. We are going to be looking specifically at youth and peer courts, and then we're going to consider the use of those in American Indian and Alaska Native communities, and just talk about perspectives from youth in being a part of these processes and some of the experiences that they had in the development and then in the actual implementation, so participation in those activities and some of the things that were learned as part of that. So those are our objectives today, and I hope that you are all open to hearing from our panelists today. Next slide. So a question for our participants is, are you aware of any tribal communities that are utilizing a teen, peer, or youth court model? So we know that there's a lot of general teen courts in a lot of states. There are teen courts, but for tribal specific processes, if you're in a tribal community, are you aware of any tribal initiatives to develop peer or youth court models? And we're aware of a few here at the TYRC, and there's actually some current tribal grantees that are working on peer-led processes. But if you're a part of a community that's developing this, or you have a peer court that's in development, or you've had one in the past, please feel free to share in the chat box about that. And I'll wait just a minute to see if anybody is going to share. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll see if anyone chats in. I just wanted to get a feeling from the group if there was anyone involved in the youth court currently. So when we talk about the role of youth in tribal society, I think that there is a value held across communities that youth are sacred and that they are valued members of the community. I really appreciated a quote that I recently came across that was from an elder that said that we treat youth as if they don't belong to us, they belong to the Creator. We are charged with the care and nurturing of youth, and each of our communities differ in the approach for rearing and supporting youth as part of their families. There's individual milestones that our communities have for youth, and they may participate in different types of activities or ceremonies to mark those milestones. Our youth serve as leaders. They have an individual voice that can speak toward change and contribute to our community's well-being. And we know that some youth struggle and have become involved in different behaviors, but there are so many opportunities to address behavior early. And what we're talking about today is really peer-led processes and supporting youth involvement to intervene as early as possible. And so developing our youth into leaders who can support one another and really work to engage and change communities in positive ways and through positive behaviors. Next slide. So we are going to be talking specifically about youth courts, and a youth or a teen court is a diversion program in which youth will sentence their peers for violations of local code or policy or law. Generally incorporates a restorative approach and employs opportunities for youth to address their behavior for minor or first-time infractions. And so we're going to watch this very short video just to get a better idea of what a youth court looks like.
Efforts to fix problems with the nation's criminal justice system, including taking a closer look at what to do about teenagers who commit minor crimes. Our NewsHour Shares tonight looks at one program in Newark, New Jersey, which offers an alternative to jail for juveniles. From our student reporting labs at Phillips Academy Charter School, 12-year-old Yasmina Sharif reports.
All rise for the honorable judge. Welcome to the youth court. I am Jessica, and I'll be the judge in this matter. Before we begin,
if this looks like a real-life courtroom, that's because it is. At the Newark Youth Court in New Jersey, teenagers are the judge, jury, plaintiff, and defendants.
The high school students are really running the show.
Jasmine Harden is the program coordinator.
When students walk into youth court, you're seeing your peers, so you're seeing students that look just like you.
But this court is unique, offering a chance for introspection for young people who have committed minor first-time offenses like truancy, fighting, or vandalism. Youth court is an alternative to youth incarceration.
We're giving the student the opportunity to sit on the stand and talk to us about them. You know, are they remorseful about what happened? What would they do differently? And then the student leaves with some restorative sanctions. So this could be community service, a workshop, jury duty, a letter of apology, or an essay where it applies.
For a young adult who is accused of a minor offense, the police, a school official, or a judge in a preliminary hearing can refer the defendant to the youth court for trial. Here, a jury of their peers decides their punishment. Shantae was first referred to the youth court for harassing a classmate online.
I was actually getting bullied in school, and then I actually turned into the bully trying to react to the person, even though I knew it wasn't the right way, but it was no other way to defend myself.
For her sentence, she was assigned community service and a letter of apology to the student she bullied.
And the whole time I was at youth court, I never felt like anyone was against me. You actually feel safe in an environment where you can talk and communicate with people just like you.
Her positive experience led her to become a member of the youth court. Talithia Parker is a volunteer juror.
I just feel like when you walk in there, you're not expecting youth to be sitting there on a judge seat as the bailiff, as a youth advocate, or a community advocate. You're expecting adults to be there, so I just feel like they're more comfortable telling a story.
This model allows young people to resolve conflict outside the justice system, leaving them free of a criminal record.
Because he wanted to get me the remix with all like.
Andrea McChristian is an associate counsel at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice.
So here in New Jersey, we have the worst Black-white youth incarceration disparity rate in the entire nation.
McChristian authored a report that argued that youth incarceration in New Jersey is costly and ineffective.
We need to look at the racial disparities, look at how we can keep those kids from not getting system involved in the first place, and that's through diversion programs like youth court.
And that was just to give an idea of a youth court setting. And so we're going to get into some more specifics about tribally led processes, but that was just to give a general idea of what a youth court would look like. So let's go to the next slide. So why would we want to develop or implement a youth court process? I think the video actually brought up a couple of those points. but it's an alternative to address status offenses or minor offenses. And so instead of bringing a youth into the juvenile justice system completely, you're implementing an earlier process to keep them not court involved and moving further into a system that might, where they might incur fines or costs or fees or other sentences that are more severe. It is an alternative process to address a first-time or minor offense. It's a restorative process that can address harm and also help them to address behavior, impact that early on, intervene early on, and try to keep them, as we already stated, from moving further into the system, to work within the community to restore any harm and to rebuild and restore relationships. And then for tribal communities, I think that we've been sharing about the development of youth and peer-led processes because it does uphold sovereignty. So saying that we want to develop our court systems and our processes in the way that we find most beneficial for our youth and for our communities. And so you're really taking your juvenile justice system and implementing processes and initiatives in a way that you find is helpful for your community members and addressing behaviors within the community as early as possible. And so you're able to enact and implement laws and other policies within your own community to help build up and restore some of those maybe more Western-based models of bringing youth into juvenile justice system and bringing them into a process case and really working more to intervene early and bring them into a more restorative and peer engaged process that can hopefully assist them and put them on a different trajectory. Next slide. So there are a number of points in which a youth could be referred into a teen court setting. Many of the programs that we see are school-based programs, and so there's an opportunity for early intervention there. There's also the opportunity to refer if there were to be police or law enforcement contact, and so you can divert from that point of citation or engagement with a law enforcement officer. But really, what we encourage is that there's opportunities at every level of a juvenile case to intervene and to divert to a process that may be helpful, more restorative, more beneficial for that youth. We know that many of the programs that we serve here at the TYRC are prevention or diversion programs that provide an opportunity for a youth to be moved out of a traditional juvenile justice setting and into an intervention so that they do not move further into the system. And so what can we do as early and ongoing to move youth out of how we would traditionally approach cases and working with that youth into something that's really going to connect them with the resources that they need, with the services that are available in the community, with alternatives to out-of-home placement, alternatives to moving further into your juvenile justice system. So there are a lot of opportunities here if you were to develop this process and different stages and places in which you could move them out of the system itself and into this alternative approach. Next slide. So there are several models of youth courts, and you saw in the video there was a model with a youth court judge there sitting on the bench, but there are adult judge court models. There are youth tribunals where you would have more of a panel approach, just like a peer jury. And so there's several ways that you can set this up, but you would just have to find the way that works best for your specific community. Next slide. All right, so we are actually going to watch a really short segment of this next video and then move into some conversation with our guest today. But this is a video just about Chemawa Youth Peer Court, and I think we're going to watch about the first minute and a half of this video or so.
Youth peer court, they reform you, steer you away from that kind of behavior later in the future through giving back to the community.
I'm really glad to be involved in peer court.
I had always been interested in law, and that just gave me like a more in-depth look into it. I like helping other people, and I thought it was a great way to help Chemawa and help the community.
The base of the youth peer court was to really go off of the One Chemawa mantra, which is responsibility, health, pride, and then to take those and say, okay, what does that look like in application?
Give the students a voice. They do have some control in the direction that our school is going.
How a situation ends up in peer court, there's a citation, and in that citation, the recommendation either to go to the judicial court system or the peer court system. And if the student chooses for it to go to the peer court system, it won't be on a legal record of theirs, and it would go through that whole system of adjudication by their peers, and they would accept the judgment of the peer court. Now, if they felt at the end that they didn't want to do it, then they would be referred back to the regular juvenile justice department of the county.
And the benefits is there is not going to be a legal record. They're able to go forward and learn from their mistakes, and also able to give back to their community by their sanctions.
We've been doing it for 2 years. And knock on wood, so far we don't have any repeat offenders. They go into the system, they pass through it, and they get it. They gain a sense of citizenship through that. It really is their own community. They come to the courthouse, the federal courthouse, they see it.
Thank you. So I am very glad to come back to Angela, and I just wanted to have her share just about her experience at school, and she was actually involved in the youth court there. So I'm just going to let you go ahead and start. You can share with me and share with our audience just about your experiences.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, that video kind of made me emotional because, you know, I now go to school at the University of Oregon, and when I was in high school at Chemawa, you know, it's such a small community. We had 400 students who were enrolled at Chemawa. Some of them were day students, but you had to live in Salem, but all Native. I went to school with a lot of Natives. And so it was cool to be introduced to different tribal nations coming from Arizona and being really closed off with, you know, life on the res. That was my first time anyone in my family ever left the reservation. But I noticed that there was a presence of Marion County Police Department, and it didn't really sit well with me because I had some, you know, everyone at Chemawa took care of each other. Like there was never really cliques or anything. We understood that we all lived together. And so we always tried to make sure everyone was like looked after. I really appreciated, I felt like I learned that from Chemawa now moving into, you know, different relations and just after high school. But one of the things that I realized was the school was expelling kids what seemed like left and right for really, really small minor offenses. One of my friends, you know, got caught spray painting on the side of the wall, and we all asked him like, why, what's going on with you? And they just wanted to rebel. There were a lot of things going back on home for them that we didn't know about. So when this peer court started, I feel like I thought I knew a lot about my friend and, you know, her situation. But then when we were in the peer court, and my role at the time was there was a group of us who served as on jury duty, and my friend came in, and, you know, it was I like guided her through that whole process because she felt scared, but I told her, I was like, there's no, like, honestly, what I had said was there's no white people that's going to send you home, because I felt like that's the way I had to put it for her to trust that it was all like kids who look like us. It was like our peers who we were gonna sit down and talk with. And we analyzed it even down to the structure of a courtroom. We didn't want to have a panel here or a judge overseeing the entire process. We wanted it to how we do round dance style, you know, in a circle. A lot of us were like, we do a lot of like circles in our tribe. Why can't we do it for a court? So we rearranged the chairs, and it kind of made it feel like it removed this perspective from what this person did to what are your strengths? What are you good at? Because when we were deciding for community service, obviously there was talent. Obviously there was a need for expression, for art, and we wanted to fill that, but in a positive way. So we actually, in the school, the students are able to draw their tribal seal, and the student themselves, the tribal seal was like way out of date. It needed new paint in the school hallway. And so the school allowed that student to then repaint new canvas on the wall, and they redrew their tribal seal. And I felt like that was very full circle in the process of what having a peer court was about. And I do want to share that when the students were being sent home, we never heard good things from what was going on. It was really sad because that's how it is in the summer. In the summer, when we all go home, we're all a little scared because you don't know who's going to come back. And I say this like truthfully and honestly, because I want to be upfront about what it was that scared me so much into doing this. And you know, there was people who would get sent home, and then a month later it was a funeral that was happening. And I got emotional watching this video because there's a student who opens up the video who's no longer with us, but was huge in forming this peer court, was instrumental in when we started this in 2016. And it's still, you know, ongoing right now. The school is shut down, but we did bring a restorative method. And one of the things that I felt it taught me was that as Native people, we need to start taking charge of our communities rather than pushing someone aside or punishing them. Those are the ones that we need to reach out, and there needs to be a lot of love. You know, you need to be a person who has a lot of love for yourself to be strong enough to go into the community. But a tribal teen court development, that's the responsibility and the power being brought back to Native youth, and that's powerful. So if there's any way that I can mentor anyone who's on this call who thinks that this may serve their community or their school, I would love to have conversations because I have seen it, and I feel that it definitely got us to graduation day, you know, and Native youth have a real high rate of high school dropouts. For me personally, I've had to redo my sophomore year. It wasn't that I wasn't smart or anything. I had some real life barriers that prevented me from getting my high school credits. So we want to find the obstacles that prevent Native youth from succeeding and remove them. And a restorative method like a teen court I saw was a way for like what Chemawa needed. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's how it's impacted me. And I really do believe in this. And I love how you framed it in the beginning of this is tribal sovereignty, and what better way to show that than Native youth redoing it, forming their own circles. So yeah, that's my spiel on it. I'm obviously very passionate about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela. So I want to thank you for sharing that, and for that video, just knowing that your friend that was with you, thank you for letting us know. And I heard a lot of things in there, and I've had the privilege of getting to speak with Angela about her experience being involved in the planning and the development of the youth court. And so I'm going to circle back because I want to let Elise give a little bit of her perspective on being involved in some youth court. We'll do some follow-up questions, and I'll give Angela some time to breathe for a second. So Elise, I know that you have also been involved in peer court work, and so I'll let you share a little bit about how you got to be involved and how you're currently involved.
Thanks, Anna. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been involved in Maine Youth Court, which is serving predominantly non-tribal communities, although occasionally there are a few Native youth that we work with. And I've been working with MYC for a little under a year, and it's a youth-led restorative justice program. So it receives government funding, but it operates separate from the state government. And the goal is to divert youth from more punitive discipline systems and obviously avoid people going to jail or to really be pushed out of their communities. And I think similar to what Angela talked about, the goal is really to bring people into community. It's not to push them out. And we as an organization have also grappled with some of the power dynamics in that most of our hearings are done in circle format, because then it doesn't feel like there's one person that has all of the power, but it can be kind of situated within a framework of collective care where both the respondent, so the person that has caused harm, and maybe the community members that they've brought in to support them throughout the process, those that have been affected or harmed, and any other key community members are all contributing equally. And the outcome of a main youth court hearing is what we call a repair agreement. So we don't use the language of sentencing. And I think that that allows for a more expansive definition of what it could look like for a youth to repair harm. So like Angela mentioned, we're really trying to play towards the youth's strength. So if that's art, it might be finding another channel. It might be that they're really compassionate and they're loyal to their friend, but that got them in trouble. So how can we play on their social strengths? Or they're, they really benefit from time with their family. We lean on the older family members to help them through this time. And so I am really passionate about youth leadership. I really love that youth facilitate these hearings and these restorative circles at Maine Youth Court. And the role of adults is really to amplify the youth voices, to provide the adequate training that youth need, and to help make the experience as holistic as possible, so that if something surfaces surrounding substance abuse or mental health or gender violence, that we can approach it from a holistic perspective and really meet the youth where they are and then provide a better pathway forward.
Thank you, Elise. So I know, Angela, similarly, when we were talking, or you were sharing with me the way that your group was set up and doing that circle, and I wanted to maybe get more specific with, I think you had shared with me that you all would open with a prayer, open with words for each other. So maybe you could share a little bit more about how you all did your, I'll use the word hearings, but how you all held your youth court.
Yeah, so to open up, as we've done with this session, we wanted to just provide a moment of asking for guidance and to just pray for overall the community, because I think that some of the issues that we were presenting, it did impact the life, which there was a cohort there, this jury, and my peers and I, we were all going to figure it out. But overall, the Chamawa community and overall like Indian country, I think a lot of us had negative stories and were impacted or knew someone who was incarcerated. And when we went to boarding school, we felt that we were all kind of forgotten about as well. So we needed community, and we needed to make sure that through justice and this process of being in high school, that there was that we weren't just sending kids to punish them. And I felt like that was a lot of soul searching and uncovering for me, because I do have family members in my life who struggle with addiction. And I have always been taught that there needed to be like discipline. I just saw them be disciplined, but never the resources that they needed. Never talks about therapy or about mental health. And so that was something that, Chamawa is one of the off-reservation boarding schools that has a healthcare center. So a lot of our funding and support came from the health center. They were excited that we wanted to talk about mental health. We wanted resources for someone who was dealing with, even insecurities with low self-esteem. So it provided a healthy space for us to talk. And it also made me feel that I wasn't alone too. There were a lot of things that brought us all closer, and that Pure Court was kind of my community too in getting my high school diploma. Nobody in my family has ever gotten a high school diploma or went to college, and I just think of the supports that have been in place for me to get to where I am today. And they definitely started with communities who were passionate like Pure Court. So I'm really grateful for the cohort that I was able to have. And we wanted it to feel like it was our own. We wanted to have that Chamawa pride. And in that video, Cynthia Schaefer speaks to One Chemawa, which was kind of an overall like mission or a policy that our community, the students agreed to, which was when one of us succeeds, you know, we all succeed. And if one of us was hurting, we as a community, there was that accountability to be there to make sure that person was good. And we always referred back to, you know, the circle with the four, like if you think of a circle and you split it into four ways, like the spiritual, mental, emotional side, we tried to make sure we were addressing all of that. And I think that kind of made us feel empowered too, because a lot of the time we want to get excited about the issues that are happening in our community, but we don't know how. And we think it needs to look a certain way. It needs to look pretty and perfect and professional. But don't forget about what our ancestors have already equipped us with. We have a lot of, you know, different tribes. They've had their own restorative justice. So in a way, you're kind of bringing it back too, and thinking about what works and what is inclusive and what feels safe. There's not a lot of spaces for Native youth to feel safe and protected. So I really tried to bring that energy and making sure that the youth feel supported. There's a plan. And the youth who goes through the process will then also be a jury too. So they will see what it looks like from the other side of things, and they will decide what community service hours should be for the next person. So it's very full circle. I say that a lot, but that's how we approached it. Yeah.
So Elise, as far as when youth are brought into the process to be a part of, and if they do a panel style or like peer-led jury, is there training? Do the youth come in? Do they get training, or how does that generally work with the processes that you're involved in?
Yeah, so youth that are involved in helping facilitate and participate in the hearings go through a lot of training, and some of that is helping to learn how to run meetings, but it's also content related training that's on being sensitive to the topics that are going to surface, because maybe the issue that's brought about the referral is about conduct at school, but it might bring up really hard family issues. It might bring up mental health issues. It could be an issue of self-esteem. So there's training both about to handle what might surface, but also, you know, what are realistic repair agreements? What could that look like? If someone is overwhelmed with going to school and dealing with everything that they're doing on a daily basis, they might not have time to take on a huge number of community service hours. So I think a strength that youth bring to leading these processes are really being in touch with what's realistic as for producing repair in the future. So the training, I think, is really helpful in equipping them. And then in addition to that, there's kind of this like just wisdom of youth, of knowing their peers, knowing what they're going through, and knowing what's helpful for youth at this stage of life in a high school setting, what makes sense for them.
So Angela, I know that you shared with me that there were a couple of adults who were involved in some of that early development, but as far as ongoing engagement, as you all were working with each other as peers, what really did you feel was the role of the adults that were there and supporting?
Yeah, so one of the you know, official roles we felt that we wanted more of supervision and guidance. We brought in a judge, and this person was with Marion County, and they volunteered their time, and they were just very excited about that Chemawa had a peer court, and just like was like, yeah, I'm free on Thursdays. So we always worked with their schedule. And we let them know, like, hey, just a reminder, we have peer court, you know, this afternoon, and they would come onto our campus. Cynthia Schaefer, she had those connections with Marion County. She had actually started a peer court with another high school that was non-native. So just a regular, you know, public high school with Oregon. And then we had to figure out what it meant for a boarding school where we had, you know, 400 students from different nations. So what worked, and Cynthia, I felt, was the one who brought up, she was a mentor in that way, and she was really kind too. I just remember we were talking and she said, how do you feel that they send you home? Do you feel that that's like, do you think that's a good response? And I told her, like, does that mean that the school is under-resourced, or why are we sending these kids home? Like, this is their opportunity to graduate. And for a lot of us, we're the first to graduate, or we're going to be the first to graduate in our families. Like, we need to make that happen. And I don't know, it just seemed like this was a school's thing and I just want to advise folks too, don't be afraid to disrupt what is traditional or what is seen as normal, because in that moment, as a student attending Chemawa, it felt like the school did not have my back. It felt like this country's justice system didn't care about Native youth. It felt like we were left out. And so that made me really upset, and that hurt a lot. And so Cynthia, she knew how to have those conversations. And so I felt like she just kind of gave me all the tools that I needed. And then it started with, because you always see the people you go to school with in your dorms. So I'd be brushing my teeth and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm starting this thing like peer court, like I'm tired of like seeing all the students like get sent home. And one of my roommates, she's like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about wanting to go to law, so I'll try it. And I was like, yeah, maybe we'll be travel lawyers. I don't know. Next thing you know, like we just, we went to the office and we asked for like people to help us put up like, hey, peer court meeting, come learn more about it. And Cynthia was just like the adult figure who kind of made it official. So I appreciated her presence, because it didn't look like just two roommates getting excited about trying to start something in a community. Like, she knew who to call outside of Chemawa. So she was the adult presence. I feel that really supervised us along the way, but it always felt like we were in control of it. So yeah, that's my relations with the staff at Chemawa.
Sorry, I have to hit a mute. Thank you for sharing that. I know that having an adult involved is generally going to be there ongoing. And so having someone there that leads the group and provides that insight is very important. Elise, how does that work with your program?
Yeah, the adults definitely play a key role. I think we also have judges that advise Maine Youth Court. They're not obviously actively making the decisions, but they're helping to support the program. We also have attorneys that work for the state that help to guide what our program looks like. I think having key support from judges and from juvenile defenders and prosecutors too, it really helps it to seem like a viable alternative, because we need youth courts to be taken seriously, so that it's not just, Maine Youth Court doesn't say that we won't work with people that have greater offenses or that have caused more harm, but we really believe that the restorative approach can work in any scenario, and that we want it to be seen as a legitimate solution. And so I think having both internal adults that are championing the youth and lifting up youth voices and coming up with innovative solutions, but we also have people that are working in the traditional juvenile justice system who are recognizing this is a great alternative. We believe that this is a better alternative in a lot of situations for youth, and we are willing to make those key referrals so that youth are diverted out of the pipeline to jail. We can't hear you, Anna.
Sorry about that. I want to leave time for the audience to ask questions if they have any of our guest speakers. And I want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So if you are joining us today and you do not have a youth court in your community, we've talked about several models of youth courts. And so just to maybe get a feeling from the audience of what type of youth court would work best in the community, and what models of youth court do you think may not work in the community. And you don't necessarily have to share all the reasons that you don't think it would work, but maybe just share if you're thinking that this is possibly something that you would like to develop or implement within your own community, what model is seeming like the most opportune model for the youth that you're working with. And while we're waiting for people to share, I really am hearing Angela talk about how this process was so integral in helping youth make it to graduation, and how the court itself, it is there to support accountability and addressing the behavior, but also providing an opportunity for them to remain in that place, remain in a safe place where they're at, and continue their education, continue the opportunities that they're engaged in. But also, it's not a free pass to, continue doing whatever you want if you are causing harm. It's really to stop and look at, what's causing this behavior, how can we address it, how can we as peers support you in changing that behavior and addressing what's been done. And I really liked that video at the beginning where that youth was talking about bullying and bullying online. And we know that that is a major issue right now. And those are types of behaviors that we know are probably occurring in many communities. And so a way to address these behaviors that are probably occurring at a higher rate. We know that youth are online a lot more, and especially with virtual schooling, we know that we have youth who've been home all year. That's pretty much the only way that some youth are able to communicate right now. And so I'm just looking at how do we support positive behavior change in our communities and amongst our peers, and really enjoyed yesterday's session that was talking about modeling positive behaviors. So I think peer courts and peer processes are really supportive of that modeling and addressing behaviors, changing behaviors, and then becoming a member of that peer jury or that peer court. And I'm not seeing a lot in chat. Laura, if you see anything that I'm not seeing, let me know. We did get some feedback, an excellent opportunity for you, Angela, and thinking that this is really cool. So let's go to the next slide.
And Anna, there was one question that's come in, which we can either save for later, but I'll share it now. The question is there any documentation on how to set up a peer court? We're a very small tribe, but many of the youth are already in the court system.
All right, so we have included a resource list for this session, and if you visit the Resource Center for the conference, there is a PDF in there that has the resources that are specific to this peer court session, and we have actually pulled several resources that you might find helpful. There are, of course, not a lot of tribal specific resources, but there are some great state resources where the processes could be adapted for a tribal community. There's also a couple of tribal specific resources, and then the videos that I shared today, we can link you to those as well. So hopefully all of that information will be helpful to you. So we've talked a little bit about what might work in a community and what may not work in a community just based on the individual and unique circumstances within that local setting. But the benefits of developing a youth court or a peer-led process are obviously the opportunity to engage with youth, to really lift them up and allow them to be a part of your judicial or your intervention processes. There's an opportunity to create community partnerships. And so like Elise and Angela have shared, there were trusted adults, there's referrals for other services that might be needed. There's community members who will come in as volunteers and maybe mentor or coach those youth as they get involved within the peer court setting. It's an opportunity, as we've already shared, to exercise our sovereign right to develop our juvenile court system and create options for youth that might not otherwise exist. It's also including youth in the problem-solving process. So instead of just saying, okay, we have all these youth that are truant, and we have all these youth that are committing these types of infractions, and, we as the adults need to address it. Instead, it's involving them in the process and saying, what's really the issue here, and how can we address this in a more peer-led and peer-supportive process. And obviously increasing and bolstering the community's faith in their tribal youth. I know that we have so many tribal community leaders who are leading prevention and intervention initiatives and have built such strong relationships with their community youth, and really just recognize their strengths, their leadership abilities, their capabilities to develop these youth advisory groups, these leadership groups that are implementing really broad change in their community. So just applauding that opportunity to recognize and build those relationships. There are obviously challenges involved with the same. So engaging youth engaging youth is amazing. It's wonderful. It's when you have a process or a program that's really having a lot of youth involvement, it's wonderful, but sometimes it can be difficult to engage your youth in new programs. You have to get community buy-in. We know with all of our programs that are supporting youth and serving youth that you have to have that parent engagement. You have to have the community buy-in to really get youth involved. There's obviously funding limitations, but at the same time, peer court process does not have to be that expensive because you are looking at volunteers, you're looking at youth themselves participating as volunteers, and so it may be a very lower cost opportunity to work with youth and to engage in an intervention early on with them. There can be some realistic issues like transportation and recruiting, and then I think that's supposed to say retention, not retaliation, and then sustainability. So just making sure that, there's all of those barriers that exist just across the board generally for youth serving programs. And some of those challenges or barriers may come up if you're trying to implement a youth court. So next. And actually it does mean retaliation because I was remembering the note about youth when we use the word sentencing, but when you are assigning your peer to some sort of activity or service, if there isn't that buy-in from that specific youth, there is the concern or worry about retaliation from that youth back into the group. And I see Elise nodding her head. So if you have anything to comment about that, feel free to join in regarding that, because you are looking at peer-to-peer relationships with younger youth. And so it's addressing all behavior, even behaviors that end up not being so positive if they're involved in the court and there's not, we're hoping for good outcomes, but sometimes there are not positive outcomes with the process. So some of the consequences that you might have in regards to sentencing within a youth court, and I'm using the term sentencing for purposes of understanding for this session, but like we said, words do matter, terminology matters. We always like to come into the conversation with strengths-based language. And so if you were in a process, you could have consequences like Elise shared, a repair agreement, but apologies, restitution, community service, counseling, assessments, essay writing, community service, those might be things that come out of a session. There's other opportunities, community work, life skills, interview skills. In tribal communities, you're looking at the opportunities for possibly traditional ceremony, other cultural classes like arts classes, language classes, other skills and training opportunities for them. But just in general, you're looking at self-esteem building and the opportunity for them to serve as leaders and as part of the community being recognized for their participation and their contributions to the process, and then engagement in that youth court as part of jury duty or whatever the terminology that you would want to use, so the panel or whatever else you would want to call it. Next slide. For a tribal youth court, you might be looking at an intertribal agreement, intra-tribal agreement, so that you have those supportive services involved. I know that both Angela and Elise have mentioned once you get involved in these sessions, what are some of the things that might come out of it? And so if you're needing to address issues, mental health issues, family issues, things that are coming out of the sessions, that's why it's so important to have these connections as you begin the process and have something that you can refer these youth to if there's needed services. And so for a tribal community, you might be looking at Indian Health Services. If you have a Boys and Girls Club, if you have connections to elders or mentors, You may be setting this process up in a school-based setting or an after-school program, or you may be setting it up as a community-based program. You might also be working with local governments or local school districts. We know that a lot of tribal youth do not actually go to tribal schools. They go to state-funded or non-tribal schools, and so you may be developing partnerships with those schools to get youth involved in a program. Next slide. So some questions for our audience are, who would lead this effort in your community? What partners can you identify in the community that you think would want to be a part of a youth court? And are there any community-specific barriers that you think would inhibit the implementation of a teen court approach? And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look at the Q&A, and then I just wanted to offer an opportunity for our presenters to share any final thoughts or any advice they would have for communities that are interested in developing a youth court. And I'll let Elise go first, and then Angela, if you want to share some final thoughts on advice to program staff or youth on getting involved in a teen court.
I would just like to emphasize that the models presented today are great models, but you don't have to take any one of them and not adapt them. I think what's great is adapting them to meet the specific needs of your community. So you can take one of the models that Anna presented and think about, does it make sense to have a youth judge? Does it make sense to have it feel more formal, or is it better to do it in circle format? And develop key partnerships and find, I think for youth that want to be involved, find the adults that are willing to champion this issue with you and are really interested in bringing youth voices to the forefront. And Angela said that she's happy to talk to anyone that is interested. I'm also happy to talk about my experience. It's not working in tribal communities, but I think a lot of the lessons are applicable, and also definitely room for integration of Indigenous practices in your own community.
Yes, and I think that from my experience with Chamawa, it's really asked me to look at policy and really just question what works for Native people, or even just put my community that I come from at the forefront. And sometimes it's uncomfortable because you're the first to kind of bring up these things, but I guarantee you that if you do see a need in the community, go with it, go with that passion. You never know where it's going to lead you. Me questioning policy, I now study policy at U of O, but looking at it with city policies, so healthier neighborhoods, like I feel like it's all interconnected, all because I saw like my friend who just needed help at Chamawa. So even during this pandemic, I'm sure there were things that you have saw or witnessed, or even that you felt, and those things matter. So there are a lot of folks on this call who have a lot of talents and passions, and that is just always my message. That's something I hope that someone would have said to me when I was growing up. And yeah, I'm very humbled to be on this call with just powerful folks who I know are looking after the Native community, and trying to equip, the youth, because just because you're a youth does not mean that you should not have a seat at the table. So you take that seat and you make sure they listen to you, and just know that there's a lot of support behind you. So yeah, tribal peer court models was just one of the tools that I felt helped, a Native community. So what does that look like for you? And that's all I had to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela and Elise. So we can go to the next slide. So just for purposes of this session, I wanted to include in the materials some other models, such as peacemaking courts, and there is youth mediation, conferencing, there are circles, which you're actually talking about during the conference, and then different councils that can be set up. And then we can go to the next slide. Hopefully supporting all of your success and whatever endeavors you have for your youth. We want to thank all of you for being in this session today, and just invite you to develop whatever processes you think are going to be the most beneficial to your community, but knowing and understanding that it does take collaboration, innovation, a lot of patience, perseverance, strength, and resilience, which we know we have as tribal communities. So thank you again for participating in this session, and look forward to continued connections with all of you. Next slide. Go to the next slide. This has been a session brought to you by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. There is a session evaluation. We will copy and paste the link into the chat. Please complete the session evaluation. We appreciate your feedback. And that should be available for you now in the chat. So if you click that link, there is a sign that links to the session evaluations in the main virtual lobby. If you have been unable to join a session that you are interested in, a recording will be posted on this platform and will remain up until April 30th. After this time, you may find recordings of all conference sessions at tribalyouth.org.